Morning, everyone. So we have a general election announcement. Obviously, Graham will have gone over the actual announcement itself. It was all hideously organised. How on earth does someone in Britain go out into the pissing rain and think that's a good idea? It's utterly ridiculous, especially when you've got a press conference room that the public spent 2 million quid making. But anyway, what I want to talk about is the fact that Tory MPs are absolutely livid at this. It's insane, isn't it? The government gets to set the date of the election. That's how it works in this country. It's quite normal. The government choose an election date within a certain time frame, which best suits them. So usually when the election is called, you would think the party of government are the ones, right, let's bring it on. And the opposition are going, oh, he's caught us out of the hop here, dash it all. But no, Labour are absolutely up for it. They're loving it. It's marvellous. And Conservative MPs that last night and today are outraged. Outraged. So why are they outraged? There's multiple reasons. There's lots of different Conservative MPs not happy about this. In fact, I'm going to read you a tweet from a Tory shill who says, interesting that they're in the media, this is the mainstream media, this is in the Sunday Times, Tim Shipman. Interesting that the reaction of Tory MPs tonight is fatalistic about the result. In other words, they know they're going to lose, they accept they're going to lose, but fury at Sunak. They thought they had 5 or 6 months to get a job, to plan their lives. They think Sunak doesn't care about them with his millions and his US home. Selfish, a word I've heard a lot. Excuse me, I seem to have misplaced my world's smallest violin. Absolutely insane that they have this attitude. But this is what I keep saying. The Tory party is the party of the self. It is the party of self. Of course, he doesn't care about them. Why did they think anyone? Why does any Tory MP think any other Tory MP cares about them? Anyway, we've got a couple of super chats straight off the bat. Fairy Godmother 199, thank you. It says, Soggy Sunak, the theme is set. Yes, drama at Drowning Street is what I've called my first video on my own channel today. And Pullinator £5, thank you. LBC, Sunak admits no Rwanda flights will take up before the election. No, well, they can't. They can't do it. So the situation is the Parliament's being dissolved next Thursday, I think that's right, isn't it? Next Thursday. After which it's the general election campaign. The civil service aren't allowed to do anything controversial. The Rwanda flights are fairly controversial. Apart from anything else, we haven't even had clearance from the courts that they can go ahead. It's like we don't even know that any flights could ever have taken place. But yeah, the Rwanda flights are absolutely dead. Nigel Farage is going to be draking up he's been out this morning saying he's not going to take a leading role in the election campaign, which is curious. I thought he would. I knew he wouldn't stand. He's confirmed he's not standing. We knew that. He's too much money in America. Also, he didn't want his arse handed to him. So what would it be? He's lost 7 times so far, is it? This would be his 8th. But it's so he's announced that he's not even going to play a major leading role, which is, I thought, well, that's the implication of his letter. It's a bit odd. I thought he would. So Reform UK aren't going to get their Farage boost by the looks of it, unless Tyres can persuade him to get himself out on the streets. Obviously, Farage will be publicly, and indeed has publicly, backed Reform UK. So they sort of have his, him in their camp. He's just not going to do anything. Craig £2, not what I meant by soak the rich, but yeah. The actual announcement was appalling. It was so stupid. I've even seen some Muppets go, what was he supposed to do? Ask for an umbrella and look stupid. No, I'll tell you what, asking for an umbrella would not make him look stupid. But what he should have done was done it inside. He could have, and they're all going, oh, why was Steve Bray allowed to do that thing? Because it's a free country. Actually, it's not allowed anymore. Talk about locking the stable door after the horse has bolted. Steve Bray is no longer allowed to play his music round Downing Street. Little bit late, and he bust his amp anyway, so he's not going to be able to until he gets a new one, I think. Anthony Gibson, £2, thank you. It says, Sunak getting peed on and peed off, shame. Oh yeah, it was. But the infighting today. So apparently, so right. Here's the thing. So there are some Tories who are not happy about it because they wanted to get jobs sorted for themselves. They haven't got time. A boo-hoo. The number of jobs they've cost people in this country. They can go to hell. But there are also some of this, what we call the swivel-eyed loons, the far right of the party. They're really upset as well. Now, what's upset them is the fact that they wanted the Rwanda plan to be seen to fail. So remember what happened back in January when they were reluctantly agreeing to pass it through the House of Commons, because Sunak faced them down, sort of. They all said, this isn't going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to do the job. Remember, what they want is to abolish all human rights laws, right? Pull out the ECHR, all the rest of it. And so they needed the Rwanda plan to fail, and it would have done. Even if flights had taken off, even if they'd have got some in the air, which they didn't even know would happen. Oh yeah, sorry, when I was talking about Farage before earlier, he tweeted some time ago, no flights will ever take off. So he's going to be trawling that back out now. But a lot of us sort of wondered how it would anyway. Because like I say, this legislation doesn't magically make it legal. It doesn't mean the Supreme Court, because all it does really is it basically allows ministers to ignore the European Court of Human Rights. Well, it's not just the European Court of Human Rights who has agency here. There's like the Supreme Court and the High Court and all the rest of it. And also civil, it doesn't get civil servants off. Remember, civil servants were taking legal action to find out whether they can do this legally or not. So we didn't even know that flights could take off, and if they did take off, we did know they wouldn't stop the boats. So now the far right are furious because they wanted the Rwanda plan to fail. First of all, to attack Sunak, but secondly, to say we can't legislate for this ourselves, therefore we must leave our international obligations. There's another super chat there. Sorry, Aidan Rutter, £2. Could polls widen if things continue like yesterday? Well, in theory, the polls will now be very interesting. Oddly enough, a YouGov poll has just dropped this morning, which actually has the poll gap narrowing a bit to a mere 25 points. Unfortunately, that poll is completely useless because the field work was before the election announcement. So it's the most useless poll ever now. There's no way of predicting it. Well, I say that. There were, last week, people were talking about the prospect of a July 4th election, to be fair. There was quite a bit of buzz about it, but I refused to take it seriously until it happened. Well, it's now happened. The polls will now be interesting. The reason is two major things will change now. First of all, obviously, the campaign will be in full swing, although Labour seem to be making an arse of theirs. I notice on their YouTube page, they're quite good at things in general, but their YouTube is appalling. So there's apparently a Labour election launch on it, and yet nothing's happening. It says on the card, 9 a.m, Thursday, 23rd of May. And yet, if you watch this thing on Labour's own channel, there's nothing happening. We've got more happening here. It's all happening here. But the other thing that will change is people's attitudes. Right now, there are millions of voters who are going to vote, or they're going to intend to vote. Let's hope they've got voter ID, who have not really been paying attention. So they're now going to start to think, because if you ask them who you're going to vote for, it's an abstract question, because the election, although it's looming, isn't here yet. Well, now it is. Now it's here. 6 weeks today, we're voting. 6 weeks today, the polls are open. I'll have already voted because I will go down early before I do the stream. And then that'll be it. The 6 weeks tomorrow, we will be waiting for Rishi Sunak to pay his final visit to the palace before he pisses off forever. And I'll tell you another thing about yesterday that has flown under the radar. Quite often, I'm sure you're aware, quite often some tragedy happens. It happens in all countries. Some tragedy happens and people identify how maybe legislation could have avoided it or avoided the worst effects of it, and they lobby the government to change the law, right? So, relating to the Manchester bombing years ago, there was something called Martin's Law that was being promoted. Rishi Sunak met with the grieving mother of someone who was killed there, and yesterday in Parliament, and he promised her that he would be putting the legislation to Parliament before summer. In other words, that it would happen before the election. He knew while he was telling, I mean, this is a grieving mother by my mind. He knew while he was promising her that he was going to call an election later that day. Isn't that appalling? Isn't that absolutely disgusting? It just shows just how he doesn't really care about anything. He doesn't care about the truth. He knew he was lying. He knew he was lying to a grieving mother. He didn't give a care. He didn't care. He didn't care at all. Poor nature, another £5 there. 6 weeks today we vote. 6 weeks tomorrow we party. Yes. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I will be happy, but there will also be a bit of trepidation because that's when the work has to start. And I don't just mean from Labour. That's when the work has to start to stop this coming back. Because I do not want to live to see. In fact, actually, right, there's a Tory commentator who's quite comical, really. He is the partner of Michael Fabricant, guy called Kevin Edgelord. Sorry, Kevin Edger. And he was tweeting earlier. He always tweeting also, oh, Labour were disastrous. Oh, you're sorry if you get a Labour government, all that business. And he was tweeting, Labour governments never end well. And I had to retweet. Technically, he's correct. He's absolutely right. Labour governments never end well. And do you know why? Because Labour governments always end with a Conservative government. And that is the worst of all outcomes. So the work has to begin on July the 5th to stop it happening again. You know, Labour won't stay in power forever, nor should they. No one should stay in power forever. But can we at least stop when they do fall? Can we at least stop it being a Conservative government that then just takes over with majority power and does all, and because they will probably at that point really push forward and abolish human rights. I mean, you look at the situation in America. Trump's people realized they made a mistake not going hard enough during his first term. So if they win power again this time, they're not going to make the same mistakes. They may make different mistakes, but they won't make the same mistakes. And they're all, you know, it's going to be absolutely appalling in America. Well, that's what we've got to look forward to in this country if we allow the Conservatives to get majority power again without requiring a majority of the vote. So we have to put an end to that. We must prioritise electoral reform. Absolutely. Real Phil saying, can't stand Kevin Edger. He's weirdly entertaining though. Oh, he's a right laugh. He's so over the top. It's almost, it's like you can't tell the difference between him and Joe Lycett. Like Joe Lycett, you know, he pretends to be a Conservative, but it's pretending. Or Sir Michael Take CBE, who's a Twitter account that, you know, who parodies, spoofs Tories. It's almost like he's doing the same thing. He's so over the top, but he's not really. He actually believes it. Johnny Copper, £2, thank you. It says, PR is a must, most important, but not most urgent. I think it is urgent. I'll tell you why I think it's urgent. Yes, Labour could be in power for 10 or 15 years without it, but it's the sort of thing that can get left behind. I will absolutely guarantee what's going to happen, not regarding to PR, but just in general, because it always happens. When Labour win power, you're going to, all these Labour ministers, these senior members of the Labour Party, are all going to look at their in-trade and they're going to be really excited for all the change they're going to bring. They're going to have all these plans, right? Things happen. You have all these plans. You work out how you're going to do it. You work out a timetable, you work out a schedule, and then an emergency happens. There are emergencies all over the place. In fact, this is the decade for global emergencies, quite frankly. The world is very unstable. And having a stable UK government will help, but it's not going to solve it. And we could have a deeply unstable American government coming. So emergencies will happen. Things that are seen as low priority get left behind. This must not be seen as low priority. It must be seen as urgent. We need to start the process ASAP. Remember, we're not going to have Labour put in any manifesto, not just this one, PR. That's not going to happen. The process, Labour have made it clear what the process is. They are quite happy to change the system. Labour's official policy is that the current system breeds distrust and alienation in politics, right? And they want to correct that. However, their official position is also that there is no consensus for what should replace it. So that consensus has to appear. And it won't come from Labour, but Labour do need to provide the vehicle for it. So we have to push them straight away. Gary Arnold, £2, thank you. Says Sunak's campaign will get worse. Now, there are two parts to the campaign. One part will get worse, one will get better. There's the dirty side to the campaign, the social media campaign, the targeted ads, the scare ads like in 2016 Brexit referendum, Cambridge Analytica and all that business. That is the bit that will probably be, if that's what I'm worried about, it'll be deeply dishonest, it'll be nasty. It may even be illegal, although they have legalized some of the things that Cambridge Analytica were doing. That's what I'm worried about. That part of the campaign, setting up fake fact-checking sites like they did last time, setting up fake tactical voting websites like they did last time. So remember, stopthetories.vote is the one to trust. So all of these things I am worried about. However, the day-to-day campaigning will be an absolute mess, yes. Absolute mess. The public appearances will be a disaster. The TV debates, disaster. The interviews, if he does those at all, disaster. And the reason is because Rishi Sunak himself does not understand politics. Rishi Sunak's advisors do not understand politics. Only the most incompetent imaginable campaign team would have got Rishi Sunak to go out yesterday and give his announcement in the pissing rain with Steve Bray blasting things can only get better. And yes, they should have predicted that Steve Bray would do something. Of course he would. It's what he does. Absolutely insane. Shezek, I think that is £32, £5 super chat. Thank you. It says, is a January style far right coup possible if Labour win? No, no chance at all. We're not that crazy in this country. We're fairly crazy. We're not that crazy. People are not that partisan. They're not that tribal. The public want it even, right, in fact, I can't actually find it now, but YouGov did a poll after the announcement yesterday to find out who supported it. Even 57% of Conservative voters support this general election happening now. They want it. Everyone wants it. Well, most people want it. So it's, there is no way to stop it. Also, there are certain checks and balances that America have that are better than ours, and there are certain ones that we have that are better than theirs. For example, in America, one of the big things was trying to get Mike Pence to change the vote, like change the decision, right? I mean, that's a mad situation to have someone in a position who is selected by the president to be vice president who oversees the process. No politician oversees the process of our election. It's totally out of the hands of politicians. So whatever Trump's people were trying to do on January the 6th, it couldn't succeed in this country, even if they were better organized, because none of the process is in the hands of politicians. None of it. It's all independent. It's actually also another advantage of a constitutional monarch in that you do not have the king, he will, if Keir Starmer wins, tell Keir Starmer to form a government. There will be no coup possible. It can't happen. There's no mechanism for a coup to work, other than literally taking over the police and the armed forces in this country. And, that ain't going to happen. Whereas they thought all they had to do on January the 6th in America was take over Congress, the American legislature. You could take over Parliament on July the 5th and it wouldn't do anything, wouldn't change anything. It's got nothing to do with Parliament. But there we go. And Paul's just saying there, Steve is always there on Wednesdays. Of course, PMQs, big event. It's when loads of MPs descend on Westminster. But there we go. I wonder if this affects the forced migration from ESA to UC scheduled to take place for many in September. Yeah, pretty much everything that's happening now won't, unless, of course, Labour also want to do it. So, for example, I mean, Windrush is still going on. There was a guy in the news recently. He's been, he's lived here for decades, and yet the government go, no, you got no right to be here. Bugger off back to the Caribbean, and that'll stop. That should stop. People were worried about the Conservatives' recent policies on benefits, welfare, particularly people with disabilities and mental illnesses. They were especially targeted. And I said at the time, there isn't time to implement it. It's not happening. It's not happening. So there are, although, yes, there are going to be some people that are it's going to take a while to feel the benefits for them. They must feel the benefits. There are some people who are going to feel the benefit straight away. For example, like Labour have a specific policy against arbitrary sanctions for people on benefits. That ends pretty much day one. Obviously, it might be day 3 or 4 or something. Liz Kendall, who will be the Secretary of State for the Department for Work and Pensions, has to change the guidance. So, but there's things you can change straight away with guidance. There are some things you need legislation for. There are some things you need budgets for and physical infrastructure building, and that takes years sometimes. But there are some things you can change with government guidance, and that changes really very quickly. They can do that. In fact, what happens, like they'll win the election, right? They'll have about 2 weeks before the summer recess, something about 2 weeks, just over 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before the summer recess. Then it's summer. Parliament doesn't do anything over summer, but the government does. So that's when the government can be changing. They can be visiting abroad. They can be doing abroad visits for those who need to, but they can basically be, changing guidance. Waywatcher Green, £5 super chat. Thank you. It says trans identities are valid. Trans rights are human rights. Yeah, you will get no arguments on this channel at all. Point to £5. Say, I half expected Cameron to come out and say, "Look, guys, Rishi's had a really hard time. Can we just make him feel welcome and he'll be out soon?" There was a photo. I don't know how many people have seen it of the cabinet sort of assembled for like a photo for the announcement. There was some weird expressions there. Jeremy Hunt looked like a rabbit caught in headlights. Absolutely did. Jeremy Hunt, of course, is going to lose his... Well, actually, we don't know. We need people to really get out and vote there. But there's a really good chance Jeremy Hunt loses his seat. Yeah. But again, don't imagine, this will be brilliant. He's a multimillionaire. He was a multimillionaire before he joined Parliament. He'll go back to being a multimillionaire business owner, a landlord, He's reached the pinnacle anyway. He wasn't going to be kept on. Even if they won, he wouldn't have been kept on as Chancellor. Most Tory MPs didn't want him as Chancellor. He was just seen as a safe pair of hands after the Liz Truss period. If they won the election, they would think we need someone who's a bit less cautious. And obviously losing the election, even if he retains his seat, he's just going to be a backbench MP. So his career's peaked anyway. I don't know why he's whining. In fact, he doesn't need his seat anymore. Labour feed vid obscured by a massive camera. Oh, they actually started streaming something now. Oh yeah, they have, really late. But again, there's something on. I'm not going to play the sound, obviously, from my point of view, but it's like there's 270 people watching it on Labour. It's actually gone down on Labour's own channel talking about the election. On this channel, we've got 1,200 people watching right now, and there will have been thousands have been watching it at some point. The stream I did on my own channel last night talking about it, we had 20,000 people. This is what I mean. Labour need to... how is it that I can get 20,000 people watching a stream of me talking about the election? Keir Starmer can talk about the election. And he's got like, he ain't even got 300 people watching. He hasn't even got 300 people watching. How mad is that? This is what I mean. They're really good on lots of things. Obviously, look how far ahead they are in the polls. Their social media is non-existent. Their social media acumen and effectiveness is it's down in the bottom of one of those Rishi Sunak's potholes. It's utterly awful. Anyway, I'm going to turn it off because it upsets me. Oh dear. Utterly maddening. When you are a political party, you can understand it of the Tories because the mainstream media bat for them. But when you're Labour, the only mainstream media on your side is the Mirror. That's it. You've got some who will be fair to you, but or at least balanced-ish, even if not fair. But, you know, you've got absolutely, you know, a party that does not have the mainstream media batting for it. And it doesn't even take advantage of its own capacity to get messages to people. They're mad. They're mad. Anyway, Labour's got to contact both of you. They won't. They don't. They never have. They never will, because they don't understand social media. So, of course, they won't. They don't get it. They don't understand. They don't know anything. And YouTube is a massive blind spot for them. You know, they at least try and have a presence on Twitter and a little bit Facebook, although they pay for the Facebook stuff. They don't actually have their own stuff on Facebook. But they, yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. Forget it. They're going to win the election. Eventually they'll lose. They just hopefully have a decent electoral system in place when that happens. Is there a possibility that the Owen Jones crew combined with the Tory campaign cause a complete bonkers result? No. Owen Jones is part of a group that actually tried to win an election or influence voters in an election when they had the Labour Party machinery behind them. They had the largest political party in Europe, and the end result was they lost 2 million votes. The idea that Owen Jones, on a shoestring, can achieve something significant when he was unable to do so in 2019, when he literally had tens of millions of pounds behind him and his ilk, is for the birds. They're just going to embarrass themselves, quite frankly. But there we go. Labour have internet Dunning-Kruger, too ignorant to realise how ignorant they are. Well, that is the problem, isn't it? It's like, you know, the problem with people, it's not what you don't know, it's what you don't know you don't know. That's always the problem, isn't it? And it gets worse, because if there's something, if you don't know something, but you are at least open to the idea you might not know, then you can respond. But if you think you know something that you don't, that's the worst. I mean, Mark Twain had a phrase for it. I can't remember the exact words. But, you know, what's worse is when you think you know something, but you're wrong. But you're sure you know, you're sure you're right. That's when it's really bad. But yeah, the social media campaign for Labour at this election will be absolutely appalling, which is a shame. It didn't have to be this way. It will be absolutely appalling. Bugger. Nothing to be done about it now. The election's here. It's too late. Unless, of course, Keir Starmer wants to give me a bell and do some live streams with me, or if pre-recorded one's probably better than live streams, because that will attract the trolls. Some pre-recorded videos, I'll put them out. I'll get him some views, but he won't. But there we go. Right. Well, we've run out of time there. We'll have to wait to see what happens today. I would, if you're going to keep an eye on the news, look out for Tory rebels trying to futilely avoid this election. They've got a week to do it. It's not going to happen, by the way, but it might be funny watching it. But there we go anyway. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to the channel, and have a great day. And until next time, I'll see you later.